This is a film about Canadian content. Hold on! I know just mentioning the words Canadian content is enough to make you want to run off and watch something else. And that's the problem. We watch so many American shows on Canadian television that many of us identify more with American culture than with Canadian culture. Since 1952, Canada has produced and aired many English-language Canadian shows, but very few of them have ever achieved enough success to be recognized or even remembered. Meanwhile, the French-Canadian television industry exploded with the creation of many popular and culturally relevant French-Canadian television shows that achieve higher ratings than most of the more popular English-Canadian television shows in a market a quarter of the size of the rest of the nation. Foreign content is presented on French-Canadian television, but it rarely reaches the same level of popularity as the domestic stuff. Unlike the foreign content presented on English-Canadian television, which dominates the primetime schedule to the point of squeezing out almost all of the Canadian content. To make matters worse, Canadians now have the option of completely eliminating Canadian television from their lives by receiving worldwide content over the internet from reasonably priced over-the-top providers on a wide range of consumer devices. So why is French-Canadian content so popular that it has its own star system, while English-Canadian content appears to be in the process of being abandoned? I've studied the problem for a very long time, and I believe it comes down to this. Signal substitution. When an American television show is broadcast simultaneously in both Canada and the United States, Canadian cable providers will substitute the American cable signal you're currently watching with a Canadian cable signal without changing the channel on your cable box. The content remains the same, but the advertising is Canadian instead of American. But here's the problem. By forcing Canadian cable subscribers to watch American content only from Canadian sources, signal substitution gives American content a guaranteed audience, artificially boosting the ratings and the advertising revenues of American content presented on Canadian television. Signal substitution has created a serious trade imbalance that leaves Canadian content at an economic and competitive disadvantage against American content, even when the government is paying for it. The French-Canadian television industry, however, can't take advantage of signal substitution due to linguistic and time zone differences. So instead of relying on foreign content for their economic viability, they produce massive amounts of their own content year after year after year. Do you see where this is leading? If we want to encourage the English-Canadian television industry to drop the American content and go Canadian instead, we must eliminate the entity responsible for this mess in the first place. No, not that. No! No! Hold it! Yeah, that's it. Signal substitution. Eliminating signal substitution will give Canadians the freedom to choose their source of American content instead of having the Canadian source imposed on them. Forbidding signal substitution will also prevent vertically integrated corporations from attempting to impose their Canadian source against their own customers. As more Canadians choose to watch American content from American channels, the value of American content presented on Canadian channels will begin to drop. Once the value of American content reaches the value of Canadian content, Canadian broadcasters will be financially motivated to produce more Canadian content in order to maintain their audience share and cash flow. To finance the demand for more Canadian content, we could redirect the production resources from poor quality Canadian television channels to better quality channels. To identify which Canadian channels should live or die, we must implement Pick and Pay. A wide-reaching and compulsory pick-and-pay system would put every cable channel up for grabs, allowing Canadians to keep the channels they want and get rid of the channels they had to buy just to get the channels they wanted. Canadians could also eliminate the channels they can receive with an antenna, supporting local over-the-air broadcasts and stimulating the local television economy. Over time, the least popular channels will be identified and shut down, and their resources can be redirected into the production of new Canadian content for the surviving channels. To prevent Canadians from dumping too many Canadian channels at once and possibly bankrupt the Canadian television industry overnight, the CRTC must maintain its current requirement that at least half of a cable subscriber's channel package consists of Canadian channels. Reaching the 50% minimum shouldn't be a problem for most Canadians, as there's already some Canadian programming we like to watch on a regular basis. This minimum requirement will also give Canadian channels that might normally not be chosen a better chance at survival. That's it. 3 simple proposals that will restore competitive balance in the Canadian television marketplace, encourage the industry to deliver more and better Canadian content, and give all Canadians better television choices and lower cable bills. By encouraging the Canadian television industry to move towards a pro-Canadian television business model, instead of watching American content about American culture, we may soon choose to watch our own content about our own culture, content that truly reflects who we are as a people and as a nation. Canadian content.